Peggy 16.
Hi, I'm Julien Pirou. I'm one of the writers and designers working at Ubisoft on the current Might and Magic and Heroes games, especially Might and Magic Heroes 7. But today, it's the 20th anniversary of the franchise, and I am with a special guest, Jan van Caneghem, the creator of Might and Magic and Heroes.
Thanks, Julian. It's great to be here.
So, can you tell us a bit about what you're doing currently?
Yeah, so I recently started a new company, and it's called VII Mobile Entertainment, and we're working on mobile games. So fantasy, strategy, I think a lot of the fans would be happy to see the new games we're creating for tablets and phones.
So Might and Magic Heroes, or Heroes of Might and Magic as it was called originally, is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. The first one was released in 1995. So how do you feel as a creator of the franchise of this anniversary?
Wow, 20 years, that's pretty exciting. Never would have imagined it when we created the first one in 1995. And it's just so exciting to be here and having new games being made.
Can you tell us about how basically how Heroes came to be, how it was born?
Oh wow, it's quite a long tale, but I'll try to get through it quickly here. Originally, I was a big fan of strategy games as well as role-playing games, and I played a lot of board games and a lot of strategy games. And my first attempt at making a computer strategy game was actually King's Bounty, which some people refer to as the prequel to actually Heroes. And King's Bounty was quite a critical success, but not as much as a financial one. So we kind of put it on the side and said, all right, I'll stick to role-playing games for a while. But we had so much fan feedback and kept asking for a sequel, make a new strategy game, please. Said, all right, finally I'm going to do one. And we decided to make Heroes 1. And took a lot of the concepts I had learned from Heroes, from King's Bounty, and came up with this name called Heroes. And originally that was just going to be the name of the game. And ironically, when we went to go to market it, we couldn't get much attention. And that's when we decided to, all right, well, let's borrow from the RPG series and let's make it Heroes of Might and Magic, and maybe we'll get some shelf space. And really that's how the game was born.
So originally, Heroes was not supposed to be basically part of the Might and Magic universe.
Yeah, so it wasn't planned to be linked at the time, but once we gave it the name, then we thought it deserved to have characters and references to the RPG series, and then it all just started to fall into place. And from a storyline and from a character point of view, it just made sense to start combining the two series.
Compared to King's Bounty, Heroes is much more of a strategy game with castles to take, territory to conquer, resources and so on. So that was really what you were aiming at with this game.
Absolutely. I really wanted a strategy game that you could start, play through, and finish and win, and then start over and try different strategies and tactics and different difficulty settings, resource management, exploration, a little bit of RPG. It was fun to just pull all that together in a fantasy theme. It was very exciting.
And that's a lot of different ingredients to put together in the same game. So how challenging was it to make the first Heroes?
It was actually very challenging. In fact, building the first game, of course, you have to build the engine first, and no one really even knows how the game is going to play while you're doing that. So we had a lot of doubting players and testers at the office. And ironically, very close until the game was actually finished, people didn't even think it was very good. The magic kind of came together in the last few weeks as we got the game actually working and worked out some of the play and the scenarios. But it was a long haul, and you had to have faith for a very long time to get that game done.
Do you have a specific anecdote or story that occurred during the development of Heroes 1 that you can share with us?
Oh wow, there's probably so many, but let's see. 3 weeks before the game was going to ship, people said this game wasn't any fun. I think that was the hardest one for me to get through, and then magically we made some changes on the difficulty and the pace of the game and some of the distances heroes could move, and then all of a sudden the game came alive. And when I saw the QA department couldn't stop playing, then I knew we did it, and I knew it was ready to go.
So from this first Heroes of Might and Magic came Heroes 2, which was in many ways, I guess, the real moment where Heroes exploded. So can you tell us about Heroes 2?
Yeah, so Heroes 1 was quite a mountain to climb to actually make because we had to build the engine and the editors, and the amount of time left to actually build scenarios and balance was small. Heroes 2 was very exciting to start because we already had the technology and the engine. Now we could just add to it and make the gameplay deeper and more characters. So the whole development period was a lot of fun and a lot of playing.
Heroes 1 and 2 were not so heavy on the RPG side. I mean, the skills appeared only in Heroes 2 and they were quite limited compared to how it evolved later. And I think it's really the expansion pack that took the series to a more RPG direction. So what did you feel about that?
That was really quite interesting during the development of the game. Originally, Heroes was set out to be just a strategy game and not an RPG. Yet once we got to the first expansion for Heroes 2, it went definitely in a direction of more role-playing scenarios. And we found that the fan base actually, instead of shrinking, it actually grew fivefold. So we had people who really enjoyed the RPG line of scenarios and others who enjoyed the strategy, and it just made the audience to the game just that much bigger. And it was quite surprising, but actually quite a lot of fun.
So there's a funny but maybe not so surprising coincidence that on Heroes 7, the 6 factions we have, 2 of them have been actually voted by the community, are essentially the 6 faction of Heroes 2. So in your opinion, what makes these 6 factions so magical?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know when we were creating the first few games, we had a lot of debates on how many factions and where the creatures and the characters would belong. And for some reason, the 6 groupings just turned out to be a magic number, and it just made sense from a strategy point of view. And I know there's been a lot of previous board games I played that 6 was kind of a magic number for sides too. So it's really interesting how Heroes evolved that way, and now you're saying that the fans want that back, and of course you've done it now with Hero 7, so that's pretty cool.
From a production point of view, what was the size of the team back on Heroes 1 and 2? How many people worked on these games?
Oh wow, I think Heroes 1 probably is 10 to 15 people. It wasn't really very large. Maybe expanded to close to 20 near the end. Heroes 2 got considerably larger, and I think Heroes 3 might have peaked at 50 plus people towards the end.
So actually, that's a great transition to Heroes 3, which is still to this day the episode that fans always mention and bring back into the conversation. Why do you think Heroes 3 became such a great success?
I think it's really the pinnacle of the Heroes series. We took everything we had learned from the first 2 and added to it with some more modern graphics, and we created a new editor from scratch, which I think was a big part of the Hero series, for players to be able to create their own scenarios and map. And we spent a lot of time on the editor, and just a lot of time on game balance, a lot of time on details, and just we put our all into it. We really loved making that game. It was a lot of fun.
Heroes 3 went on to become very successful. It had several expansion packs. The Heroes Chronicles also more experience to the fans. How do you explain basically the impact it had on players?
I don't know. It's quite magical, actually. I still meet people today who tell me how that was their whole college career, was playing Heroes with their friends, and it's really quite amazing. That game has stood the test of time, and still even today people play it. And I don't know. Sometimes you just hit it right on the money, and it all works. It's really hard to explain.
Actually, in Heroes 3 especially, there are some heroes that are familiar faces. Sir Christian was actually Chris Vanover, one of the members of the team. David Mullick became Sir Mullick in the game. Are there other characters or heroes that come back to you and that have a special history like that?
Well, yes, I think a lot of them in the game were employees and or old characters from other Might and Magic games or previous Heroes games, or some of them were actually characters that many of the employees played as their role-playing characters when they played role-playing games. So it was a labor of love, and people wanted to put themselves into the product as well. And of course, I was Sir Caneghem. They always put me on things, so I didn't mind.
And I think Kragak was actually your pen and paper character originally.
Yeah, that's correct. That goes all the way back to high school days when I used to play paper and pencil RPGs. I had a character called Kragak, and I think he's lived through all the Might and Magics and Heroes games. It always gives me a laugh when I hear that.
The Heroes series especially had, for a very, very long time, a very involved community. I think even back when it was Heroes 2 and 3, there was a 3DO forums with a lot of people already discussing and debating the games. So how was it to work with the community back then?
Oh, it was quite interesting, and it was a lot of fun as well. We used to have a saying at the office, they were always asking for all these features and all these concepts, but we really had to figure out why they were asking for it as opposed to just dumping those features in, and then anytime we tried that, it didn't go very well. But it was fun. There were a lot of very vocal people, as obviously you have now, and very passionate fans, which is always a great thing to have.
One thing that really came to light recently is the size of the Russian and Chinese fan communities, and I think that's something you maybe didn't realize back in New World Computing days.
No, it's actually quite amazing that years later, hearing from many Russian companies and communities, and with recent visits to China, and hearing about how they all knew about Heroes of Might and Magic and played in tournaments. And of course, back then, we didn't sell any games to those territories, so they were all pirated. But it turns out millions of people played this game and the series of games through many years in these territories, and they just absolutely adored it, and they loved it, and still even today, some are still playing. It was quite a surprise that the audience for this game was so much larger than we had ever even realized.
For you personally, which Heroes is your favorite and why?
Well, that's almost like asking which your favorite child, right? But I think Heroes 3 was probably the pinnacle of the Heroes games for me. I think I spent the most time on that one, but also Heroes 2 has a special moment for me because I did so much of the detail work in doing all the maps and the scenarios. So it's kind of tied between those two, but if you made me pick, I'd probably pick Heroes 3.
One thing, earlier we were talking about how Heroes was not supposed to be connected to Might and Magic, but after Heroes 2, basically, the world of Heroes became the world of the Might and Magic RPG, so it was sort of a reversal of things. So how did you decide, basically, to base the Might and Magic RPGs on the Heroes universe?
Well, so the Might and Magic RPG series came to a pinnacle at World of Zine after Might and Magic 5. And the story had ended, and I was a little done with role-playing games at that point, and I was 100% focused on strategy games, which became Heroes. And then as Heroes grew to be such a huge success, it became the lead project, actually, and Might and Magic RPGs were then following. So whatever we wanted to use for Heroes was fair game, and it became the lead world, and we borrowed lore and characters from the Might and Magic series, and that's how they became intertwined.
In the early Might and Magic titles, there was this sort of sci-fi background. It was usually well hidden, or you only discover it at the end of the games. But with Heroes 3 Armageddon's Blade, the first expansion pack, originally the plan was to bring that back into Heroes with the Forge faction. But this time the fans were not so happy about this. So can you tell us about basically this, how this turned out?
Oh, I thought it was fun. I think in a strategy game it's okay to introduce things and try them out, and if you don't want to use them, it's fine. And of course the Might and Magic RPG series had a little bit of sci-fi, as you remember, at the very end, kind of hidden underneath all of the fantasy. So bringing that to Heroes seemed like a natural, but it was, again, amazing, the fans' response of, get your sci-fi out of my fantasy game. Some of the diehards. So it was fun.
In your opinion, basically, what is a magic recipe that made Heroes so appealing and even addictive to players during these 2 decades? What is the secret ingredient?
I think the passion of the development team working on the game was a big part of the magic that came out of it. We all loved working on it, and we loved playing it, and I think that really came through in the quality and the end result on the product. I also think putting in the editor so players could enjoy the game and then modify it themselves and really continue to interact with the game for a long time to come after that. Those are some, I think, of the magic elements. And of course, fantasy is a worldwide, very, very popular. And you add that with a balanced game, and I think you have something that people are going to enjoy for a long time.
One of the pillars of Heroes so far has always been the fact that it's turn-based game. And but I guess that with the strategy market having more and more real-time games, there have been some temptation to go real-time with Heroes. So did that actually happen? Was it considered?
Yeah, that's quite an interesting topic. And as the Heroes evolved through 1, 2, and 3, and then computers were getting faster and more people were playing real-time games, there was a lot of pressure actually that we should move Heroes to a real-time strategy game as opposed to a turn-based. And the market was fewer and fewer turn-based games, and everyone was releasing real-time games, and we almost did it. We were actually very close to turning Heroes into a real-time strategy game. But at the last minute I said, you know, this game, I wanted to keep it pure to what it was, and I said it's going to stay a turn-based strategy game. And I believe us and Civilization were the only two real big games that stayed as a turn-based game to this date, and I'm really happy we made that decision.
There have been actually some games that may have been influenced a bit by Heroes, so was it something you actually saw in other strategy games and you say, oh, actually I recognize a bit of my game in that?
Yes, in fact, I do think there's a lot of games that borrowed or copied from the Hero series, and I think it's the greatest form of flattery, and I was excited to see it. It was actually pretty awesome.
So I think it was in 2004 maybe, Ubisoft acquired the Might and Magic IP, and from there new games, both Heroes, Might and Magic, Dark Messiah, Clash of Heroes, and so on, have been made in this brand. So did you play them? Did you keep track of these games?
Oh, absolutely. I was very excited to hear that Ubisoft picked up the licenses and that they were going to make new products. That was very exciting to me that my games were going to live on.
And yeah, I think that back when Heroes 5 was starting at Ubisoft, actually you were approached to maybe take part in some capacity to this project, but at the time it didn't happen. So can you tell us a bit why?
Well, I was busy at the time working in a new company and new games, and I thought it was very flattering, and I would have wanted to, but I couldn't have dedicated my entire time to it, so we decided not to work together.
So right now we are in the last sprint for before releasing Might and Magic Heroes 7. Did you have the chance to see what the game was shaping up to be?
Well, I've been following it a little bit, and I'm obviously very excited to see it come out. And like with the previous Ubisoft games, I've been waiting to actually play the final game, is the way I like to do it. So can't wait to play it. I'm very excited.
On Heroes 7, we are trying to involve the community a lot in the development process with this Shadow Council website, when we ask them to vote for factions, for creature design, and so on. But I was wondering, what's your opinion of this open development philosophy that we see more and more nowadays in video games?
Oh, absolutely, and it's quite commendable to actually do that, because I know how difficult it can be. But with a game with this type of history and the passion of the fans, I think it's a terrific thing to do. I hope you do more of it.
One thing we've said about Heroes 7 is that it's a bit of a best of Heroes, basically our favorite features and ideas from all the past installments of Heroes, as well as some new ideas, of course. What would be your best of Heroes? What are your favorite features of the Heroes games?
Wow, that's a lot of features, but I'd have to say a well-balanced game that I can play over and over again with a lot of difficulty settings, obviously beautifully created, and of course having an editor where people can put themselves into the game.
So this year is Heroes 20th anniversary, but next year will be Might and Magic 30th anniversary. So looking back on all these years, you've really been witness of the evolution of the video game industry. So what's your opinion on video games nowadays and where the industry is going?
I think it's great to have been involved with the industry for so many years, and wow, 30 years next year for the original Might and Magic, that's crazy. I can't even believe it. But I think games have, for the most part, remained the same, and what people like and the systems involved. The graphics get better, and Now we have more interconnected games with the internet, but it's really been pretty cool to watch the evolution of games over this long period, and to see something like Heroes and Might and Magic continue to be played this long. I really can't tell you how great that feels.
So to conclude this interview, I have actually some questions from our VIP fans.
VIP fans, I'm in trouble now.
If you were to create Might and Magic today, would you still mix fantasy and science fiction together?
I think on the RPG series, yes. I think it was part of the original canon for the game, that there was a little hidden sci-fi at the very end of the RPG. That was really the story I created at the beginning.
I think it was in Might and Magic 3, so Eyes of Terra. At the very end, in the ending sequence, there's a mention of the creators being the ancients' arch enemies, basically. And so fans are wondering if the creators and the Kriegans are the same beings.
Well, no, the Kriegans were a different race we created to do invasions and cause havoc. And the creators originally started off as just loosely the development team at the office. Well, we were the creators. And then as the fans started to read and play the games, they started to interject ideas, and it actually stirred our imagination, and then we made more out of the creators than just the guys at the office writing the code.
But, right now we're talking about the ancients, or because in Might and Magic 3 it implies that creators are like the nemesis of the ancients, and it was never mentioned ever again.
No, sure. In fact, the creators and the ancients were kind of the same thing originally. They were us at the office, and then as the fans responded to the concept and the lore and the mythology, we started to build it into the actual games and the history.
Another question, a bit of the same type, really, that Greg Fulton, who was a writer on Might and Magic Heroes 3, mentioned on a forum or something that angels were maybe like cyborgs, or it was hinting that there was some dark secrets behind the angels of Heroes 3. Was it actually just a joke, or were angels really something scary?
Well, as far as I know, I think that was just a joke. Angels were just another fantasy creature that we had in the game, but you never know what Greg was thinking. He came up with a lot of crazy ideas.
Did you ever give a specific name to the planet where the Heroes 1, 2, 3, and Might and Magic 6, 7, 8 were set?
There was actually probably several names. I couldn't tell you today which one we even settled on. Maybe Greg could jump in on some forum sometime, but it really wasn't part of the big picture for the product, so I don't think it was a big deal. But I know there's fans who they like every little detail to come out.
At some point, it became known that you had a passion for car racing. So is it still something you're interested in?
Yes, that's my other love is sports car and auto racing, and I've been doing it non-stop now for 20 years. And it's funny you just asked. So last weekend I was at Mazda Laguna Seca Raceway and actually won my third national championship. So it was very exciting.
So why did you decide to actually mostly left the science fiction elements out of Heroes?
Well, I think a lot of that had to do with the fan feedback, as you mentioned earlier. Might and Magic had a little bit of science fiction at the end, but Heroes really wanted to be a pure fantasy strategy series, and then when we added RPG sense to it, it just didn't really need the science fiction background.
Of all the worlds of Might and Magic, and there's been quite a few from Varn and Crown and Terra and Xin and all the ones that followed. What's your personal favorite playground, basically?
Well, I think World of Xin was probably my favorite. It was the pinnacle of the story of, all 5 games led to the finale, and it brought it all together. And that was kind of the end of my story for Might and Magic at the end of World of Xin. So that was probably definitely my favorite.
Maybe a more philosophical question, I guess. But what's your main goal when you create a game? Is it the fun, the interesting plot, having interesting and unique gameplay experience, or bit of everything, basically.
Well, true, it's a bit of everything. I think there's a little bit of selfishness in there, and I do like to create games that I myself love to play indefinitely. And it just such a great feeling to be able to create something that so many people out there can enjoy and have a great time with. And then there's, of course, the financial responsibility, but for me it's always been, I hope it makes enough so I can make another one.
Originally there was Might and Magic the RPG, then came Heroes, the strategy game, and little by little there were other attempts to try other genres, like action games and stuff like that. For you, what would be the genre you'd like to see Might and Magic try, basically?
Well, we did want to make an MMO out of it. There was an attempt there that we never got to finish. I really did like the direction of Dark Messiah that Ubisoft did. I thought that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed playing that. I've seen some handheld games and some browser games. I think they're all cool. But any more of the games is just great with me.
So the last fan question is really about Might and Magic Online that you mentioned. Did you regret never getting to finish this project, basically?
Oh, absolutely. We had such amazing plans to take Might and Magic to online. RPGs, I saw them evolving, I saw them moving to an online to be able to play together with your friends, and I really wanted to make a version of Might and Magic that could go that direction and be online where you could play together with people you knew and go on adventures. So I would have loved to have made one of the early MMOs, but just didn't happen.
So thank you very much for participating today in this interview, and also thank you for creating Might and Magic and Heroes and giving us gamers so many hours and nights of fun and just one more turn, especially with Heroes in these last 20 years. And we really hope at Ubisoft that you will enjoy Heroes 7 when it comes out in late September.
I look forward to playing it, and thank you so very much for having me here. I really appreciate it.